In 1976, Andy and Maggie Robbin bought a bear cub who grew to be a 10-foot-tall, 50-stone grizzly. With access to an incredible archive, we'll see the highs and lows of living with a feared predator.
It's a challenge. We don't know what's going to happen. This is the bear I've got here.
Could they share their lives with a deadly animal? Or would the beast resort to its wild ways? This is the incredible story of Hercules, the human bear.
I got him! I got him!
Toronto, Canada, 1968. Wrestling promoter Jean Dubois offered $1,000 to anyone foolish enough to fight Terrible Ted, his 7-foot, 40-stone black bear.
The bear gave him a flying bear that time.
To win the money, a wrestler had to survive 15 minutes in the ring with the wild animal.
660 pounds leaning on you, you've got problems.
Andy Robbin, a young Scottish wrestler, was up for the challenge.
To wrestle Terrible Ted was the feat itself.
The bear has got a muzzle on, but I don't think it covers his entire mouth.
This guy was trying to kill me. He was trying to wrestle me. If he hadn't had the muzzle, I'd had no head left. Many a man was taken away injured and tried to wrestle with bears because they're so quick, man. You need to be nuts to wrestle with them.
Andy lasted the full 15 minutes. He walked away with a $1,000 prize and an idea that was to change his life.
I got a great feeling on him, even though he was trying to kill me. It was crazy, but I enjoyed it. I was looking for a bear to take home with me, to make him a star. And that's what I wanted. You've got to take the risk. You wouldn't do nothing if you didn't take risks.
On returning to Scotland in the 1970s, Andy became obsessed with taming his own wrestling bear. Previous attempts at keeping bears for entertainment had had disastrous consequences, but Andy dreamed of defying the odds. He planned to raise the bear at his Sheriffmuir Inn home near Dunblane, a home he shared with his wife Maggie.
I'll never forget the day he said, "What would you think if I said I wanted to get a bear?"
I said, "I'm going to buy a grizzly bear." And I'll tell you, she says, "What? A real bear?"
It wasn't like something you thought, "Oh my God, are you off your head? Are you crazy?" You just went, that would be lovely.
Andy and Maggie began their search, ringing around various zoos and parks, hoping to find a spare cub. A 100 miles away in Kincraig, wildlife park manager Eddie Orbell had the opposite problem. He had a pregnant brown bear and no room for her cubs.
Really, they weren't worth anything. You could give him away to a zoo or wildlife park, or unfortunately, they have to be put to sleep, and that's what would have happened.
When Andy heard about the plight of the cubs in the local paper, he set off to see Eddie.
There's a knock on the door on a Sunday afternoon. I thought, who the goodness is that? We were approached by Andy Robbin. He turned up at my back door and wanted to buy a bear. And he wanted to take it there and then. I said, no. They're going to stay with their mother until we're ready to let them go. So he agreed to that.
They said, "Yes, you can have a bear." He was like, "What? Oh, can we?" And how much is that going to cost? And he said, "Well, what about £50? Just like that. And we thought, oh, that sounds quite reasonable, really.
And he gave me the money straight away. He was desperate to get this bear.
Andy and Maggie visited regularly over the next 6 months. They took him home on the 20th of September 1976. He already weighed 13 stone and stood 4 feet tall. They named him Hercules.
And this was the start of his life. Is it going to work? And it's not going to work. After all, it's a challenge. We don't know what's going to happen. This is a bear I've got here. One of the ferocious animals in the world.
Maggie, a successful show jumper, knew how to handle large animals. But neither she nor Andy had any experience of raising a grizzly bear. Andy wanted to start turning Hercules into a wrestling star straight away.
When he goes into ring wrestling, he's going to play. But when he's playing, he'll have the strength of 4 men.
The rapidly growing bear needed to be tamed before he became too dangerous to handle. Andy devised a training regime of back-breaking cross-country runs and sparring sessions in his purpose-built ring.
This is Hercules getting taught to go into the wrestling ring. All the way he can get us up a ladder. A good boy. Behave now. Behave.
Over the next 12 months, Andy trained with Hercules every day, determined to make his dream come true.
Goodbye, Grizzly.
The young bear was gaining 20 pounds a month and soon weighed more than 30 stone.
Have you had a few bad bites?
Oh, I've been bitten all over the body. But it's not bad. It's only playing. But let's forget it. It's a very, very dangerous thing to wrestle Hercules. And if he hooks you accidentally, if he catches any part of your body, you're a goner. Let's put it that way. If he gets in a bear hug, you're finished. You break your back if you weren't in the right place. When you turned over, you had to be quick, so you were on your back. I had to be supple to get out of the way of him a lot of times. It was just myself saving my life a lot of times.
Hercules now towered over Andy and was twice as heavy. But at 18 months old, he still wasn't tame. Andy's dream was in danger of becoming a nightmare.
I couldn't trust him. I said to Maggie, my wife, I said, he's going to guzzle me. He's going to trip me up out there, and I've had it someday.
During one training session, things came to a head. Hercules deliberately tripped Andy and pinned him to the ground. Andy couldn't move and thought that the giant grizzly was about to kill him.
Yeah, the big grizzly on top of me, and he stood back, and he just stood back and looked up at me like that, looked at me, says, I'm your friend. I'm not going to bite you. And I ran home, and I said, I'm ready. We've got to start in the making now.
By the winter of 1979, Hercules, the grizzly bear, was 4 years old, 35 stone, and stood 7 feet tall. Andy's relentless training regime had begun to pay off. A strong bond was developing between humans and bear. Andy's dream was to create a death-defying wrestling act that would tour the country and play to packed crowds. His next challenge was to make the public aware of his magnificent beast. Andy and Maggie commissioned their own documentary to be shown on local TV stations across the country.
We decided we were going to make a film. You know, everybody wants to make a movie, don't they?
Shot over 4 days in the spring of 1980, it cost them £10,000.
Thousands of years ago, bears were once part of the Highland scene. They roamed freely in the hills and in the forests. But this one is no relic. He's a large, playful grizzly bear who lives in safety, whose name, appropriately perhaps, is Hercules.
It was really just about a day in Hercules' life. We wanted to let people see what was going on, what was happening.
Wild bears are expert scavengers and will eat anything that moves. But as the documentary showed, Hercules had more refined tastes.
Breakfast is ready now, Herky. Come and get it, boy.
Hercules loved food. He had human taste buds. He didn't like raw meat or anything like that, wouldn't eat it. In the morning he would have his coffee with his evaporated milk and sugar and his bread and his eggs and his beans. And then at night time he had his main meal, meat cooked with potatoes and soup and carrots.
We used to drink the beer When he was thirsty, he would have a slug. And he loved that. He was the big tonguey, a big kiss. This is good, you know what I mean?
He was a very, very happy drunk. He would just kind of go, oh well then, and down he would go, you know. It didn't happen often, but it was very funny when it did.
But he liked it. And hiccups, oh Christ. Like that. He's a character.
The documentary also showed Hercules' love of water and the difficulties in keeping him under control when he went swimming.
When you get him in the water, there's only one thing wrong. You can't get him back out. He would stay in there all day. And you've got to keep him on a rope up there because he would explore right up the loch. He would swim the length of the loch. You remember never get him back again.
The 60-minute film was made by ex-BBC producer Mike Marshall.
I was reasonably content that we were safe. Andy said, look, I'm not going to put you in any danger or anything like that. We'll film from a distance and I will have control over this bear. I think there was a kind of frisson of anxiety, right at the beginning, thinking, all right, okay.
This was a time when risk assessment and health and safety briefings were non-existent. But the dangers of filming the world's most feared land mammal roaming freely could not be ignored.
There we were, 4 of us set up, tripod, camera, and Andy had Herc on the leash, but somehow or other he managed to slip away from Andy. And all of a sudden he said, Herc! Herc! He wanted that bear to come back to him, but Herc wasn't up for it. And I've never seen a sound recordist or others run so fast. It demonstrated this enormous power that a bear like that can have. The risk factor is there, but there was a tremendous bond between Andy and the bear. It wasn't just a performing animal here. This was a relationship between man and beast.
Just as Andy had hoped, when the documentary was televised, the crowds flocked to see Hercules.
I'm going to give you an exhibition of some of these wrestling skills which are natural to bears, so we hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
I'm getting the wrestling. What's wrong?
You're very sloppy kissers too, boys and girls.
The sellout wrestling show travelled all over the UK. The unique mix of sporting prowess and genuine risk to human life was a revelation. Andy was living his dream.
That's what we make a living.
And the audiences loved it too.
Hey, he's back on bloody Willie!
Andy's faith in Hercules and disregard for his own personal safety had paid off.
Ah, he's got my bloody hair! Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for coming today.
This unique family were now inseparable and planned to tour together for the next 10 years. Then, in the summer of 1980, Maggie took a phone call that was to change everything. Major tissue brand Kleenex wanted Hercules to star in a new television advert. Hercules now had the chance to move on from being a wrestling bear. International fame beckoned. The advert was to be filmed in the Outer Hebrides, a remote crop of islands in the northwest of Scotland. Andy, Maggie and Hercules arrived on the islands on the 20th of August 1980. Filming was due to start in 2 days' time, but Hercules had other plans.
When Andy and I woke up that morning, first thing Andy wanted to do was get Hercules out for a swim. I said, let's get our breakfast first. And he said, no, I'm getting my big man out. So he got his wee collar on him and the big long rope that he used when they swam. And they went down there, swam across to that next wee bit, which is just a little way away. And then you could see Herc was really swimming away ahead. And I thought, the rope's not that long. and Andy kind of turned round and gave a few expletives as he normally does.
I was shouting on him to come back, and he just kept turning around looking. And I kept swimming. I was going to get drowned. Lucky enough, I got back, and Hercules was out there. He never came back.
Best friend Brian Davidson had travelled up to shoot a home video of the Kleenex advert and witnessed the panic firsthand.
Andy was, getting quite devastated at that point in time because he couldn't see him, and it would be running through his mind that maybe Hercules had got drowned because the currents are extreme, they really are.
Where was he? Under the sea? Was he swimming? Where was he?
Maggie said, "We'll go and get the boat." Brought the boat back and launched it. Searched the coastline. Didn't find him.
News of the missing grizzly bear and the chaos it caused quickly hit the headlines.
He started to really get the realisation of the enormity of what had happened, and where on earth was he? He was our big baby. He'd lived with us, we were pals. He depended on you, and we'd such fun with him. It was a nightmare then. Andy was crying into his pillow and I was crying into mine, but he pretended it wasn't happening. Even thinking about it now, it just makes me really sad.
Local police were concerned that a giant runaway grizzly posed serious risk to human life. They launched an immediate bear hunt involving islanders, the media, and even the army. But there were no sightings. Hercules had vanished.
Planes in the sky, and every day they were going back and forward looking for him. Private planes, other planes, every kind of planes you could get. Boats were looking for him. Everybody was looking for him, but they couldn't get a sign of him.
I was up in a plane and we went back and forward, back and forward. There was nothing, not a trace.
For 8 days, Andy and Maggie scoured the island, day and night, but found no sign of him.
Everybody helped, they really did. Young and old and fit, and everybody helped. They found nothing. As time passed, the chances of finding Hercules alive and well were getting smaller and smaller.
The general consensus amongst the searchers was that Hercules had drowned. The search was called off. Devastated, Andy and Maggie made the 8-hour journey back to Sheriff Muir without Hercules.
I was just at that rock bottom stage. We went home and we were in bed the first night, and Andy woke up in the morning early and he said, "I'm going back up. My big man's alive up there. I'm not leaving him up there in his own. I'll be there when we find him." So, gosh, I still get, that's quite, sorry.
Andy refused to give up on his star bear. He headed straight back to the islands to continue the search, alone.
When Andy takes something on, he's totally like, that is it, blinkered. He's doing it, end of story. And with Herc, he loved Herc, and he wasn't giving up on him at any time.
When I came back and I looked at him and I said, "He is there." Because I had this instinct in me, he was alive.
Andy searched by himself for another 12 days, but still found nothing. Hercules had been missing for 3 weeks.
In my heart, I said, he's there. Hercules is not dead. These big bears, they swim, they go everywhere. Why should he die? Too easy for him to die.
Finally, Hercules, the grizzly bear which went missing in the Outer Hebrides last month, has been seen alive and apparently well.
You actually saw the bear?
Yes.
From what distance?
It'll be about a mile or so. Yes.
And what was he doing?
He was just walking across the moors, you know.
We chased it for 3 or 4 miles, and then it eluded us altogether.
Oh, it was just like the sun had come out. It was amazing. And he was right. His boy was still there.
I knew he was there. Something in me told me that. I said, he's alive. I told the press, I told everybody that. And they said, no, he's dead.
Hercules was alive, but still on the loose. The sighting again turned the small Scottish island into a media circus. Doors were barricaded and children locked away in classrooms for their own safety. Andy hired a helicopter. He called on old friend Eddie Orbill and vet George Rafferty to try and capture Hercules by shooting him with a tranquilizer dart. But the police were concerned that after 3 weeks on the run, Hercules could be wild and dangerous. They feared he could attack the islanders. Out of earshot of Andy, they told George that if Hercules couldn't be tranquilized, then he must shoot to kill.
When he got on board, I said to the pilot, I said, if we happen to kill this bear, we're going to fly straight to the mainland because we're not going to meet Andy again. He would have gone berserk.
As Eddie and George crisscrossed the bear-coloured island, Andy was unaware that Hercules' life was in grave danger.
We were up for nearly 8 hours searching. Towards the end of the afternoon, evening, the bear was spotted.
Amazingly, the pilot spotted him down on the edge of a loch. Hercules dived in on seeing him and swam across.
The pilot managed to hurt him, and he got on shore and started running again. And I fired the dart. The wind caught it from the propellers. It just went in the ground somewhere.
We had another dart ready, and he loaded that, and he said to the pilot, can you stop the engine just for a few seconds?
So when we were over him again, he cut the engine briefly, and I fired the dart.
The bear was moving and the helicopter was moving.
I got him.
Hercules' 24-day adventure had ended, but his ordeal wasn't over. Without an antidote to the tranquilizer, he'd be dead in 30 minutes. The race was on to get him to safety.
And suddenly, Hercules wasn't a bear on the run. If Hercules could survive this, he would become quite some bear.
After 24 days on the run, Hercules had been tranquilized and caught. But his life was now hanging in the balance.
Once you knock any bear out, you must bring him round again with another jab within half an hour.
He had already been unconscious for 25 minutes, and vet George Rafferty was desperate to bring him round. But the amount of people in the coach was putting Hercules' life at risk.
I said, I'm going to revive this bear, so if you all get out the cage and watch from the outside, some animals, when they're revived, become aggressive. All these reporters and cameramen and so on, they didn't move. And I said, come on, out you go. So I said, well, I gave it intramuscularly, and he came round. I made sure I was near the door to get out.
Hercules was alive, but in terrible condition. During his escapade, he had lost nearly half of his body weight.
Around the bear's bus swarmed the children of the island to see the animal that had trapped them in their classroom when he'd first been sighted yesterday. And himself, a little dopey still, 15 stone lighter, but the signs are that Hercules will be back, larger than life, selling, was it tissue paper?
It's so unbelievable for a grizzly bear to be 3.5 weeks on an island with wee children and sheep and cattle, and he would rather starve to death than kill.
The condition he was in when he was found, I don't think he ate anything in the 3 weeks he was on the loose. If he had ever attacked a sheep or a cattle or anything like that, there would have been leftovers. But Hercules would have never harmed a beast. He was scared when he was in a swimming pool. He was scared of a plastic rubber duck, never mind something that was alive. Hercules was used to cooked food, not raw food, but good food, proper coffee with milk and sugar. He liked his beer. He was well off, and he was treated like a human. Loads of people loved him.
He was against all the odds. He was against the whole place, and he never touched a thing. A grizzly bear who's starving, never ate a thing. You can't follow that.
Hercules quickly recovered from his ordeal, regaining 10 stone in just 3 weeks. The story of Hercules not harming a living creature whilst nearly starving himself to death endeared this once feared animal to the world.
Made him a world-famous star, without a shadow of a doubt, and that's what he was.
He was now an international household name.
After Hercules was lost, oh, it was monumental. The phone rang all the time. We had people from all over the world phoning up. It was really exciting.
Hercules was no longer just a wrestling bear. He was in demand for talk shows, photo shoots, and he even inspired a hit song.
Oh, Hercules the bear, you're a famous TV star, and all the world has heard about you now. You never will be found, and your cage is shattered, it's only watch and shine upon your curly bow.
Everybody liked Herc, and he was a star. That's what you could call Hercules, a star.
Kleenex was over the moon with Hercules' new star status. Thanks to his gentle giant reputation, they booked him for not 1 but 3 adverts, the Big Softy campaign. But Hercules wasn't their only booking. After an extensive search for an actor to star alongside the bear, only one man had what it took.
I was a lumberjack man, like that.
Here's Big Hank. He don't take fright. He's the strong and silent type.
I'm the best actor you'll get. It's just a job, isn't it? I've been acting all my days wrestling.
Kleenex family toilet tissue. The Big Softy.
Hercules became an A-list star, and soon Hollywood came calling. He set off on a showbiz career that any superstar would be proud of.
The Robbin family live in Newhall, California, in this custom-fitted mobile home.
The unconventional family relocated to Hollywood. Hercules was constantly in demand, working on TV shows, ad campaigns, and major feature films. The more they worked together, the more the bond between humans and bear developed.
Like all big stars, Hercules keeps abreast of the latest news in show business.
Experts couldn't believe what they were seeing.
A grizzly bear is an antisocial animal. He doesn't even associate with his own breed except during mating season. I don't know how Mr. and Mrs. Robbins have accomplished what they have with Hercules. There appears to be some kind of a bond between them. I know that Hercules is like a kid to them. That is their baby. The only thing I can assume is that Hercules looks to them the same way. They have done what a lot of people says is impossible.
The next few years saw Hercules continue to abandon his wild instincts in favor of the human way of life.
I'm hungry, you know. He says that you get like them you live with, and I think he did. We got a wee bit like him, and he got a wee bit like us.
I think they're a bit of human in him, I really do.
Andy has a lot of bear in his makeup, definitely. If Herc was going to be a person, he'd probably be Andy, and if Andy was going to be a bear, he'd probably be Herc. Amazing similarities. We're both very exuberant people.
You got that?
Andy was always playing and tormenting Herc.
Bear's driving me nuts. You're right, Brian. You're right, June.
And Herc would torment him back. They liked fun, they liked to wrestle.
I got him now.
They were both showmen.
I got him. 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 This is a good promotional film, this. It's an amazing, amazing animal. With his parents, you know. It was a big love affair. That's what it was like.
But this unique bond came at a cost. Hercules relied on his adoptive parents. To bring someone new into the family would break that trust.
I think everyone in life makes sacrifices no matter what they want to do.
Good boy.
The sacrifice makes it worth all the more at the end of the day, because you know how much it's cost you.
Where are you going now? You rascal.
Now that you think, oh, I maybe wish I'd had a family myself and stuff. But at the time you were so engrossed in him, you kind of didn't want to anything else in your life at that point. But I've got to say it was all worth it, every bit. He meant that much. He was my boy.
After 2 successful years in California, they decided to come home. Hercules' earning power was higher than ever, and he could afford all the trappings of success a superstar would want. Andy and Maggie designed a purpose-built home for Hercules. The sprawling 30-acre site, called the Big Bear Ranch in Perthshire, was every bear's dream.
What is here in this luxury home that's been built by Hercules' earnings?
Well, just everything. Everything when you're born, you're striving to do things, it's the best. Well, we've done it now, you know. Hercules has got, and we've got everything we ever dreamed of getting. Through hard work. I mean, you don't get it easy, you know, wrestling an 8 feet, 3/4 ton grizzly bear. But everything we do, he loves to do.
It all felt too good to last, and it was. The average lifespan of a wild bear is 25, and at 20, Hercules was in the twilight of his career. The world's hardest working grizzly was booked to star in a natural history film about the wonder of bears for the BBC.
Exactly how bears hibernate is still a mystery. For an astonishing 3 to 7 months, they never get up, never eat, and never get rid of waste.
The demanding 4-day studio shoot was hard work for Hercules. On the final day of filming, he began to act strangely.
He was always really quite cuddly and couthy with me. But all day he'd been really coming up to me and cuddling into my leg and made you tingle. But you know when a child's ill and they want their mum? Knowing what we know now, that's what it was.
Hercules completed the final scene and went back to his trailer. Within minutes, he collapsed in agony.
He started writhing about and he was literally bumping himself off the walls. He was demented with pain.
His back was in agony, the poor bear. He didn't know what was happening to him. He was lying in the corner and pushing his legs up in the air. It was terrible.
I thought he was having a heart attack. We didn't know what was happening. It was just a nightmare.
In desperation, Andy and Maggie called the show's producers for help.
We said, you know, something's happened to Herc. We need to get a vet along here. Something's really wrong. The vet that was there for the show, he came along and he said that Hercules had blown out a disc in his back. He said it was very common in big bears like him, and, you know, we were devastated.
So Hercules has become a bit of a star through the film and TV work, and it was TV really that was his downfall, wasn't it? Tell me what happened.
We were filming a programme called Eyewitness in Pinewood Studios. We thought actually he was having a heart attack. So we got the vet in the morning and he said, "It severed all his cords in his spinal cord, So the vet said he would have to be put down. So
And
you know
you
what
said?
I don't want to swear, but you know what I said to him.
Andy refused to believe the vet's diagnosis. He was determined Hercules would not be put to sleep. In the winter of 1998, Hercules went into hibernation. When he woke up, he could no longer walk on his back legs. Distraught, Maggie brought in her equine vet, Anne Logan.
I think the cause of the problem, nobody can really say, but obviously he was a big bear. He stood on his back legs a lot, so I think perhaps there was some degeneration of the discs or of the spine. So whether he had, just as we would have, a prolapsed disc, which then pressed on the nerves and caused damage, therefore he wasn't able to have the use of his back legs. I said to Maggie, it would be great if we could actually try and x-ray the spine and see what the problem exactly is. So I phoned to Edinburgh Vet School, and between us we organised Hercules to go there for further investigation.
And finally tonight, just before we go, not so much a story of a bear with a sore head as a grizzly with a bad back. Hercules, Scotland's favourite four-legged film star, will go into hospital tomorrow for treatment on a spinal injury.
Hercules will undergo a series of x-rays and scans at Edinburgh University's Hospital for Large Animals. True to form, he'd attracted an audience within minutes of arriving there today. Even hardened vets, it seems, go all gooey at the sight of the world's favourite grizzly.
The trip to Edinburgh was the best hope for a diagnosis, but yet again there were problems.
The density of the fat pads around the spine in the bear make it almost impossible to get a good vision on x-ray. Nowadays, to be honest, they have more powerful ultrasounds, they have more powerful x-rays. It's possible they would have been able to see a lesion, but then, no. And I mean, it's such a difficult animal to deal with.
By the summer of 1999, Hercules' future looked bleak.
If he'd been suffering terribly, I think as a vet I would have to have said, this is not fair on Hercules. I did selfishly think it'd be so much kinder if Hercules sleeps away than for somebody like me to have to actually take the decision to say, Andy, we need to put the bear down.
Aged 24, Hercules had lost the use of his back legs due to a spinal injury. But Andy was determined that his gentle giant would walk again. He devised a new training regime aimed at getting him back on his feet.
All the time, Andy was working with him, walking up and down the pool and getting Hercules to swim with him and swim back. And this went on for months. It's unbelievable. Andy had worn out pairs of trainers. He had 2 or 3 pairs, worn them completely through.
Good boy. Come on. Good boy,
Andy was always of the belief that Hercules would stand again. Always. He never ever thought that he wouldn't be able to get him up and walking.
Good boy, that's a good boy.
After 6 months' work in the pool, Andy's determination yet again paid off.
Herc started to walk again.
I got him walking. Christ. One day he stood up and he started moving his back legs.
It was like, oh my God, we've got him, he's back.
How's his legs doing, eh? Fine. Good boy.
But then winter came again. And he started going into hibernation. He went off his legs again.
He tried so hard, but he was back to what it was.
Despite all of Andy and Maggie's hard work, Hercules was now confined to his den, unable to walk.
It was terrible to see. What a way to go, a big, proud animal like that, and to be like that.
I'd been in to see him, give him a cuddle. And then I went up to do my horses, to feed them. And I was up there for about 20 minutes. And I came down and Andy was standing outside, and he said to him, "He's away, Maggie. That's him away." So I'm glad I got my last cuddle. I'm glad I got my last cuddle.
Hercules died on the 4th of February 2000. He was 25 years old.
Living with Herc was the most special time. It was a gift. He's a piece of folklore now, especially in Scotland. He's really a piece of modern history, and he'll always be embroidered into the folklore of our country.
13 years after Hercules' death, Andy and Maggie were asked to unveil a monument to their gentle giant. It's sited on the Hebridean island, overlooking the lochs and glens that were the setting of his most notorious adventure.
This is a fantastic day for us to have the memory of him here, because his whole life and his story really came from here. It was a bit of a scary time for some of the islanders, I know, who were kind of like this at night, thinking, God, I hope he doesn't pick this house. So it's just fabulous, and I'd like to thank everyone. Right, here we go. Yay!
Yay!
Oh, my God. Oh, wow!
It's nice, eh?
Look at hello, big man. Is it beautiful?
It's lovely.
Gosh, that's fabulous.
It's a beauty, eh? Oh, kids.
Standing 10 feet tall, the life-sized statue is a permanent reminder of a grizzly bear that rewrote the rules of nature versus nurture.
You know, Hercules left you with a great legacy. You had an amazing time with him, a charmed life. He touched so many people's lives. He never let you down. Is he a big bear? You haven't got a teddy bear that size at home, have you? No.
Great to have him up there. It's great, a great ending for him. He'll never die. It's perfect. Couldn't really better. And I hope it brings a lot of joy to all the people that come and see it, because it's something else. Hey, guy. Hey. He's still there. He's in his den there, and he hears me talking all the time. Keeps shouting him, "Get up!" in the morning there. And you still feel him about the place. He's here. The place is riddled with him. Yeah. He used to do that if he wanted his tea. And he never put a paw on. Not one paw on. Perfect gentleman.
You miss the cuddles. I mean, he was a bear. He was a great big bear. I had my own teddy bear who walked and talked and cuddled me. That's amazing.
And there's another real-life story tomorrow at 9 on Channel 5 as the limbless mountaineer takes on the impossible and leaves us all speechless. Next, though, we head undercover with new season Person of Interest.